Welcome to Jonas Plays Your Game, the series where you can send me your indie games and I try to give you feedback. You really seem to like this format, so I thought let's just make another one. Today I'm giving feedback on the twin stick shooter platformer game 99,999, that's how it's called. Let me just say, this is the most addicting game we ever played on this channel. Why is that the case and what could be done even better? That's the two things we're gonna discuss. In my opinion, the coolest mechanic in this game from a design standpoint is collecting the weapons. Not only do you get a new weapon whenever you collect a weapon, but you also get a weapon. And these weapons basically work like your score. As soon as you've collected enough weapons, you win the level. Every time you collect a weapon, you also see a number popping up that tells you how many more weapons you need to collect. The reason why this is so genius is because it's such a simple solution for so many problems. First of all, it forces the player to move around the level, it stops you from camping in one corner. Secondly, it makes the balancing so much easier because you can't just keep the best gun once you have it. Then thirdly, it forces you to play with a lot of different guns, which creates a lot of variety. And then as the fourth point, it's even used as a score. The mechanic keeps the game simple and clean while providing it with basically everything it needs. As point number 5, I would say it even adds a lot of additional tension, because you have only about 20 seconds to collect the next gun. If you don't, a timer starts. If it runs out, you lose. So it keeps the game fast and the tension high. There are 3 more things that make this game super addicting: the controls, the combat and the progression system, so let's talk about them one after another. First of all, the controls, they are really good. You have a lot of control over how your character moves. Everything feels pretty snappy and responsive. If you're wondering, how do I make snappy and responsive platformer controls? Already made a video about that, I'll link that in the corner right here. One thing, dear developer, you should definitely change is, why the hell do I need to press 2 buttons just to drop down? There are enough buttons on the keyboard. In such a fast-paced game, I don't want to press 2 buttons just to drop down to the next platform. In my opinion, you could even just bind it to the down button, because you definitely need dropping down more than you need ducking. I also think it's super cool that there's a high skill move, this dodge roll, that allows you to dodge enemies and projectiles. Another thing that I found slightly annoying on the other hand is sometimes it's hard to get onto platforms due to the dynamic jump height. In situations like this, for example, where I barely make it, maybe you can detect that and just push me a couple of pixels up. Sure, you could argue to just get good, but I think if you can help the player character to do what the player wants the player character to do, that's always a win. There will still be plenty of skill-based activities left in your game, which brings us to combat. In fact, there are 2 reasons why the combat feels so freaking good. First one is the feedback, the amazing feedback you get for everything. Just look at this shot. It has just the right amount of screen shake, good animations, and I love how this enemy is pushed away. This makes such a big difference. The knockback makes the weapons feel so freaking powerful. It's absolutely beautiful. And the second thing that adds to the power fantasy even more is that enemies really just take a couple of hits. They're not bullet spongy at all. They really die very quickly. So it has a great power fantasy, and whenever you get hit, you really feel like it was your own fault, because you always see dangerous things before they happen. It's beautiful. Enemies have a relatively long spawn animation, so you have time to react to new enemies. And due to the great animations, you can even see when enemies are about to attack you. Combine that with the fact that all of the enemies feel very unique because they all behave in a different way. The balancing for the guns is great. They all feel about equally powerful, but they still are very different from one another. Take this bouncy gun, for example, and then once again pay attention to how quickly you switch between different weapons. Okay, but we covered that. The combat is great. How does this game plan to keep you entertained for a long time? Let's have a look at the progression system. There are multiple levels split into multiple worlds. In order to unlock the next level, you need to beat the one before that. In order to unlock the next world, you need to collect enough points. And as I've explained earlier, points are basically the amount of guns you collect in each level. You need 180 to unlock the second world. If you don't have that, that means you need to go back to the old levels and replay them in order to get a better score. When I see something like this, I usually think, they're trying to stretch the playtime of this game. They want me to replay the old levels. I don't have time for this. So yeah, at first I didn't feel so motivated to replay all of these levels. But as I got into it and started replaying them, I figured out, holy hell, this is still pretty fun, even if you play it the second time around. Also, if you play a level for the second time, you can play it with your own loadout, which means you can choose 3 guns, and only those 3 guns will drop during the level. So, okay, lucky you, you get a pass on this one. I definitely feel like you need to be a little careful with this though. You don't want to make it seem like you're trying to stretch out the gameplay too much. Also, it can be pretty damn frustrating to be stuck in a system like this. If the game is just too difficult to progress to the next world, that can be super annoying. If I purchase a game, I want to be able to access the entirety of the game, even without going pro and investing thousands of hours into the game. So you need to be very careful about the balancing, about the difficulty of the system. If you make it too difficult, it will definitely piss people off and break your game. The 180 you need for the second world were about the right amount for me. It was a nice challenge, but it was very achievable. I just hope these numbers don't get too high later on in the game, because yeah, it's fun replaying the same level a couple of times, but at some point it's enough, okay? I don't wanna be sitting there and thinking, where do I get 300 more points? So as you can hear, there's definitely a lot of my personal biased opinion coming in there. I do not like these systems. As I've said, this game gets a pass. It works okay here. Just please be careful with it. There's a second progression system stacked on top of that. The shop. Sometimes enemy drop coins and you can use those coins to buy upgrades and weapons. At this point I want to point something very positive out again. You don't need to buy weapons in the shop in order to get new guns. Oftentimes when you complete a level you just get a new gun as a reward. Which from a game design perspective makes a lot of sense, because you don't want to give the entire control over such an important factor to the player. If the player is just super stupid, for example, and doesn't purchase any guns, it's your fault if they don't like the game, because you didn't give the guns to them by default. The reason why I point that out is because I've seen that in a lot of amateur games, that they just have a shop with all of the guns and all of the items. Which, yeah, is fine for some games, but it also means you're giving away so much control to the player, and that can really, really hurt some games. Players don't always go for the option that provides them with the most fun. They usually go with the option that provides them with the best chance of winning. And in this case, for example, it's the heart. It's obviously the heart, the extra life. The guns don't make you any stronger. The heart does, so yeah, of course I purchased the heart and not the guns. Even though the heart is literally the most boring item. Of course, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have a shop. It's pretty cool that there's a shop, and even the heart kind of has a purpose. Let's say you're not good enough to actually get to the next world. At the very least, sooner or later you will have enough coins to purchase the extra heart, and it will become easier for you. So yeah, shops can definitely help to prevent people from getting stuck, because if they keep playing long enough, they will be able to afford the upgrades that make them strong enough to continue onwards. That's it for the progression system. I feel like it's a solid one. There's not a lot I would change about it, except doing a lot of play testing for the difficulty curve. The difficulty curve needs to be absolutely on point in order for this to work properly. So far, I would say it was on point for me. So guess that's something. Good job. But let's talk about a couple more things I personally would like to see changed. First of all, something about the onboarding experience. When you first see this screen right here, you feel a little bit overwhelmed. There are too many buttons. I don't know where to click. I'm too stupid. So you, dear developer, have two options. Option number one, highlight the button that I need to click. So I find the tutorial. All of the other buttons are completely useless at the moment. I don't need to see them. I would even suggest option number two, just don't show them at all. Just hide them and unlock them later. You can show a message like, congratulations, you unlocked the shop, and just unlock these buttons one after another. I don't need all of that right from the get-go. The tutorial itself is actually pretty good. In the first half of the tutorial, you play through this level right here and learn how the controls work. And in the second part of the tutorial, you actually learn how the game works, the gun collecting mechanic. The second half of the tutorial definitely felt a little messier, partially due to the wording. For example, when you wrote collect weapon drops in order to clear the tutorial stage, I thought this only applies to the tutorial stage. So I would choose something like collect weapon drops in order to clear the stage. Just make it a bit more general. Also, I was a little stressed out by the section where the timer appears and you need to collect the gun before the timer runs out. That came a little bit out of nowhere. I totally get that you need to teach this mechanic, but maybe just give the player a little heads up and let the player press proceed when he's ready or something like that. Yes, I'm nitpicking, but what do you want me to do with a game like that, okay? It's really good. One more thing I'd like to see changed is the time I got the shotgun. Because the next level after the shotgun is one where you absolutely can't use the shotgun because there are only ranged enemies. I think if you get a gun, it should be useful in the next level after that, otherwise it feels kind of useless and dumb. And that's exactly the way I felt about the shotgun when I first got it. It felt completely useless to me. But that was only the case because there were a lot of ranged enemies. Yes, you can kill them with a shotgun, but they pretty much still hard counter it, okay? And just to set the record straight, the balancing of the shotgun is absolutely fine. It's a pretty powerful gun, just not exactly against this kind of enemy. The shotgun feels a lot better against the flying enemies, for example, so either give me the shotgun at a different time or put a lot of flying enemies into that level, which, by the way, is not the option I would go with. I really like the fact that there are different enemy compositions in every level. You encounter different kinds of enemies in every level. So let's not mess with that too much. Just keep in mind that whenever you give me a new gun, make sure it's super useful in the level after that, because you want guns to feel like rewards and not like punishments, okay? Especially if you keep in mind that I'm not used to handling that gun, I need to figure out how it works, so my skill with that gun won't be that high. Which means, yeah, just make sure it's a good level for using that newly acquired gun. 99999 will be out on Steam sometime soon, so definitely go to the Steam page and wishlist the game. I would say it's worth it. I will buy it for sure when it comes out. This video is not sponsored, I just want to help other game developers out, I guess. If you want to help me out, you know what needs to be done. Standard YouTuber request. Subscribe, like, share, watch another video, whatever. See you in the next one.